Hello, Matt Elliott here.
Hi, Alan Smith here.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here.
Be sure to watch
Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV
for all the latest Leicester City news and information.
You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels.
for the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Come on, you foxes!
Till I Die TV, your first choice for everything Leicester City. Tune in and join in now.
Right, Chris.
All right there, all right at the back. How are we doing? How the devil are you all? That was it. That was the January transfer window. Not a lot on. As somebody on Facebook's just said, didn't sign anybody, end of show. Could be a really short show, but it's to me, I think it's brought some sensibility, if you like, to the game. I mean, if you go onto the BBC website, onto the Leicester City homepage, you'll see the Tuesday talking point today. I've actually done a little bit about our transfer window. And I've put long-term stability over short-term gain, because I think, what we've been doing is, and not just us, a lot of clubs, we haven't got the money to spend. If we're all honest, our owners are in the tourism business, and that has been absolutely devastated these past 2 years by COVID. So do they go out and take a big loan out to get one or two big signings in? It's January transfer window. There's always a couple of million added on because it's January transfer window. I don't agree with it, but there we go. And do we do that? We're having a bad season. We've still got the injuries. Players are due to come back. Whether they'll come back before or not, obviously, we don't know. But it is a case of we're not going to get relegated. We're probably not going to go for Europe. Let's kind of accept this season for what it is, a kind of meh season. We just sort of let's settle and let's sort things out and look at January for the windows when we'll hopefully, because we've not spent now, we'll have a bit more money to spend. Good news, I suppose, nobody went. Well, when I say nobody went, quite a few went, but nobody of the big players went, shall we say. And that's no disrespect to the youth team, but we will go over that. This is Leicester Till I Die TV. You can catch us now on YouTube on Leicester Till I Die TV, Facebook, Twitter, and if you are listening to this on catch-up, thank you very much for listening. The number of plays we've had is amazing. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and your favourite podcast. Here's where you can find us.
Watch us on YouTube. Listen on your favourite podcast platform. Or ask your smart speaker to play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Subscribe, like, follow, and join in now.
Indeed. So we're going to be looking not only at Leicester's, but we did have an in. We actually did have an in. And their outs. We might even get round to looking at the shake it all abouts. You know what Craig's like. Always brings the level down of this show. So we may be shaking it all about later. But also other teams as well. And if you're watching, whether you're a Leicester fan or whether you're a fan of another club, you want to pop on for 5 minutes and say how pleased or disappointed you are with your team's transfer window. I'll put the link in the chat on YouTube so you can join us. This is the Leicester Till I Die
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event of the evening. 60 minutes of football fun and banter with Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV. Are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble.
And a man who's always ready to rumble, Craig. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. I've been careful on my diet, so hopefully there'll be no in-show rumblings going on.
Well, that's the last thing we would need. The last thing we would need. So we can only see you from waist upwards. So maybe that.
I think that's for the best.
Wouldn't affect. Let me ask you a question. What were you doing? And I'm sure you remember this on the 1st of February, 1986.
1st of February 1986. Oh, that was pre-children, so I was probably enjoying myself.
Oh, didn't we all? Let's have a look at this.
Leicester City FC on this day in history with Leicester Till I Die TV.
The reason I'm doing it, but Saturday the 1st of February 1986, Gordon Milne's team, remember Gordon Milne? Hit back after falling behind at Stamford Bridge to secure a point against Chelsea. The home side were chasing European qualification, as in Chelsea, and the game was going to form book when Duncan Sierra gave the home side the lead. Ali Morchlin levelled for Leicester City, and Steve Lynix scored a point with a 71st minute spot kick after Keith Jones had restored Chelsea's lead. Steve Lynix, what a player, eh?
A fantastic player, and somebody he'd be an ideal person to watch a game along with, wouldn't he?
You know, you could almost read my mind. You really could. He is this Saturday, BBC One it is, FA Cup 4th round, Nottingham Forest, Leicester City, and East Midlands derby. It's been a long time since we had one of those. And so you can basically put it on the telly, stick it on BBC One, turn the volume down a little bit. We're not going to commentate on the game, but we're going to be like a couple of mates sat in a pub, having a chin wag, watching the game. Join us if you've got nothing better to do and the wife doesn't drag you out shopping. But as I say, what a league! You know, people think this show's just thrown together.
I know. It's highly honed and finely tuned.
It is. Right, let me just put the link for anybody that wants to come on. Quick 2-minute slots are available if you want to come on. The link is now on YouTube if you want to do that. Facebook user, like I said earlier, we didn't get anyone end of show. Redface, good evening, sir. How the devil are you? Haven't seen you before, so welcome along. And hang on, this is all going wrong. He says, how are you, mate? We are very good. Evening, Chris. Rob, how are you, sir? I suppose all the long-term injured players will be like new signings. Well, if they come back, Redface says we should sell O'Laven, we need money. Yeah, that's a bit drastic. O'Laven might say, why don't you sell Leicester? They need money. It works both ways. And it won't be a long show if we're talking about who we have signed. Torco.
Andrew, you've watched enough of these shows to know that we can drag anything out.
This is true. We'll probably end up on 70s kids shows again. We've done that before now. Can you ever get too much, Dorco? I don't know who he's referring to there. Whether that's Craig with his sexy buttons undone, I don't know. But too much. I never thought you could get too much chest, to be honest with you. But who knows? And there's the link. You say click on it if you want to just pop in for two and join us.
I will just say, talking of too much chest, for anybody who frequents Leicestershire Live, which is basically a professional clickbait channel, there's some interesting stories on there today, including one that does mention someone's chest. It's an interesting read. When you've done it here, pop along there. I'll say no more.
And my mind's working overtime now. But then again, I'm thinking, like you say, I'm thinking Leicestershire Live. It's not going to be exciting, is it? You know, it'll be a headline that they managed to drag out to about 6 lines to make a story.
It's just an interesting insight into what they think constitutes news these days.
We shall have a look. Rob says Chris and Craig may turn up in drag one day. Rob, we could be wearing tutus under the bottom half on there. You're never going to see it.
Well, any more cake and it'll be a 4-4.
Really? Okay. Transfer window. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Sign of the times. Do you think this one? I did say at the start that, and like I said, I did sort of say long-term stability over short-term gain. I was surprised how many teams didn't actually make any signings. But let's start with Leicester. Wasn't really surprised, and they said at the start that we weren't going to do any business, and we didn't. I
think it's more of a non-sign of the times, isn't it? Was how it went. Very good, Andrew. Nothing. I mean, what we got. So we've got this young lad from Arsenal, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you had a chance to have a look at any of him. He looks like he's a finisher. Let's put it that way. The little bits of him I've seen, he doesn't look like someone who is flash. I mean, all these young kids have got some tricks these days, but when he's in front of goal, he likes to find a corner. So he looks like he's a decent finisher. Clearly, something's gone wrong at Arsenal. Yeah, I know his dad's come out and made a few comments in social media about Arteta. So he'd only been there 3 months, coming across from Chelsea. Boyhood Arsenal fan. So something's gone wrong, and you know, it looks like with Aubameyang, you fall out with Arteta in any way, you're gone. That's what it looks like. Something's happened there, but we've picked him up. 17-year-old to go into the academy. Who knows? You know, these days people get an opportunity, and if they take it, then they're in the team. But he does look a decent finisher. That's as much as I really know about him. Yeah. I think the outs are a little bit more interesting.
Are they? Is he a striker? I have to admit, I've been totally off grid today.
Yeah, he's a striker. He looks two-footed. Tends to come in off the left a little bit more, and looks stronger on his right, cutting in, I would say. But yeah, does like to find a corner. Doesn't thrash at it. So whether he's an instinctive finisher or a thoughtful finisher, we're not sure. I would liken him a bit more to, in terms of ours, probably more an Iheanacho type of finisher, more of a side foot guy. But you know, he's another one gone into the academy. But you know, the academies are factories these days. So many go in and few come out.
Well, I mean, you look at Fofana. He was bought to go to the academy, wasn't he?
True. As I say, you know, if you get your chance and you take it, then you're in. I don't think. I think in modern football, because players are a little bit more, well, probably a lot more protected definitely than they were in our day. You know, you can be in there a little bit younger. You can be a little bit more lightweight than you may have been able to get away with before. You can be a little bit more skillful, and you've got a chance. Whereas in the older days, even going back probably 10 years, you're going to get kicked a lot more. You know, in the Vieira and Keane years, you know, let alone the Leeds United years. But it was a lot more physical. So I think you can get away with it, and that's probably why you see a few more younger players making a breakthrough.
Like you say, something must have happened at Arsenal, especially when it's your boyhood club that you leave. But like you say, Arteta is kind of getting that reputation. But looking at our outs, and there was quite a few, but it was almost a clearing of the decks, wasn't it, really?
It was, yeah. I thought the interesting one for me happened fairly late on. I'm going to have to put my eyes on just to have a look at this. Was Daley Campbell. I found that one quite an interesting one. Just because I think you've still got Pereira on the injury list, which leaves you with James Justin, who can cover at right back, and Mark Albrighton. I'm not sure how much cover we've got there. Whether Pereira is on the verge of coming back, I'm not sure, but I was surprised at that one. Whether it's a view that he thinks that there's a player there, but he just needs more pitch time to develop, and so he can probably make a decision about him in the summer. I'm guessing that's the case, and he's not going to be able to find much out by him sitting on the bench. So from that perspective, I think this whole window is a window with a view to the summer, to be honest. I think, unless we could have got in the right player, which would have been a centre-half, you'd have thought, I don't think they were ever going to splash cash, because then you end up with a player who you've spent money on. If it doesn't work out, he's clogging up the squad for next year.
Exactly.
And then, so unless you got a good loan signing for the 6 months, it doesn't surprise me that we didn't do any business, to be honest.
I totally 100% agree with that. I mean, just to come on before we come back to the academy, Andrew says here, where would you have strengthened? Who would you have bought in if available? I mean, it would have been a centre-back, but what centre-backs were out there that we could physically afford?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been my question. Anybody who is disappointed that we didn't buy anybody, I'd like them to just throw a few names about that we can maybe discuss, who people who were available. I'm not sure there was a lot out there. There was one or two names that were thrown about, but I think Brendan had been quite clear in what he wanted in a centre back. Yes. He wants someone who can pass the ball, preferably, but more so the 2 points that he reiterated over and over was aggression and pace. And in centre backs, there's not a lot of those around, to be honest. And if they are, that clubs don't like letting them go in January. No,
and as you say with Daley Thompson, is he going to get sort of more game time at Dundee than he would do at Leicester? And then, as you say, looking to the summer and next season, which I think we are doing for anything now, unless we manage to go all the way in the Conference League. He will come back, hopefully, maybe like a Harvey Barnes.
Definitely, and I think that's it's a great move for Casey McAteer as well. Going, albeit League Two, but they're flying high at the top of League Two. A team that likes to get the ball down and play football. So I think that's a really good move for him. Looking at some of the others, Sam Hughes has gone totally. So has Regbar. Benkovic we knew was going to go. And Stolarczyk on loan to Dunfermline. And I know Schmeichel speaks very highly of him. I think there was a lot gone on behind the scenes there. And I think Schmeichel recommended him to the guy who took him on loan to Falkirk when he was a young player who's now heading up the recruitment there at Dunfermline. So that link has stayed there between Schmeichel and that guy. And I know they think very highly of this young kid.
Terry says they're watching a video on academies, 1.5 million kids in them and only 180 make it into a Prem team.
Yeah, it's shocking, really.
It is, but then again, there's only 11 players can go on the pitch in a team, and
it's true, but it is, but it is becoming like a factory, a hen house almost. And what my question would be, what happens to the 1.4 million?
Yes,
and more. What's the support network? As soon as you're taken onto an academy, your eyes are going to be wide. You think you're going to make it, and I think there's a documentary to be made, I think, about academies and the number of players they take in and how few they churn out. Imagine if that was a school taking in 100, what is it? How many? 1.5 million
1.5
pupils and 180 coming out with any qualifications.
Yeah,
I mean, there'd be uproar.
I must admit, and my brain's not good enough to do this without a calculator. let's take 1.5 million. Okay, I'm going to include all the clubs. So there's 92 clubs in the league.
Yeah.
that means that every club has got 16,000. I just think that 1.5 million, no disrespect to you, Terry, but I'm sure even Chelsea and Man City don't have 16,000 in their academy. You know what I'm saying?
I think Chelsea have 16,000 on loan.
Well, this is true, but maybe check that one for me, Terry. But yeah, those players that we've let go, I mean, the ones that we've actually have gone permanently, probably with the exception of Sam Hughes, I don't think I've particularly heard of them. But those that we've seen in and about the squad, and, have maybe popped on for 10 minutes against Watford or sat on the bench when we've been a bit short, those sort of names are the ones that have gone out on loan. So I think he's doing it right.
Yeah. As I say, Harvey Barnes, Kieran Dewsbury Hall was another one who got valuable game time at Luton last year. There's a guy, I forget his name, but there's a kid down at Cheltenham now who started the season on fire. Midfield player who scored quite a few goals, got a bit of an injury and was out for a bit, but has come back and scoring again.
Yes.
So it's a good grounding for these, because you see for the want of a better phrase, football is being played further down the pyramid now. So it used to be you'd get a certain level of football or a certain type of football, let's say, it's probably a better phrase. So the Premier Leagues would play a lot more passive movement, and then you would expect that as it goes down the league, it's a bit more physical, it's a bit more kick and rush. But you see now that style of football is going deeper and deeper into the leagues, which means teams are happier sending their players down on loan because they are going to get a bit more of a grounding and a bit more physicality, but they are going to get the chance to play football.
Terry's just said apparently it was in Europe.
Right, okay.
That kind of splits it down a little bit, doesn't it? We've got some comments coming in, but I'm just going to bring in Nippon, who's a big Chelsea fan, allegedly.
Hi, Nippon.
Nippon, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Chris. Craig, how the devil are we today?
Good, thanks, Nippon.
So, Chelsea's window, in Dylan Williams from Derby and Mason Burstow from Charlton.
Well, in terms of actual signings we signed a striker called Fu King No One.
I'm so glad you started that with a B. But yeah, well, there's a lot of clubs out there. I mean, these two, I mean, I've never heard of the two that you signed, so I presume it was positions that you needed filling.
Yeah, but for first team, we didn't sign no one. Hence why I said we signed a striker called Fu King No One.
Yes.
Nippon, who do you think you needed? Because in many ways, you look on paper like you've got one of the strongest squads in the division, probably outside of Man City.
Alonso needs to leave my club.
Who does? Sorry,
Marcus Alonso.
Right. Okay, but I mean, he's not going to be the reason that you challenge or not, is he? To be honest, Marco Alonso is a bit of a bit part player, standing left back. He's not going to make the difference, is he? Getting a left back in.
No, but the thing is, we need a backup to him because he's shit.
Say what you think, Nippon. Say what you think. I mean, looking at the players that have gone out, again, I mean, I've not heard of most of them. I presume they're all sort of youth players, are they? And you've done, well, 4 of the 6 are out on loan there, so there's nobody really gone out. I mean, I'm surprised that sort of, Roman hasn't gone out and spent a bit of money, but I think it's most clubs haven't, have they, really?
I think he will spend in the summer.
I don't think many teams, as I said just before we came on air, Chris, that unless you're in trouble, I don't think many teams were going to be splashing cash.
No.
I would imagine, West Ham fans are a little bit disappointed that they've not strengthened, looking at the position they're in. But I think most teams were looking pretty solid, to be honest. And you can really get caught out in the January transfer window.
You can, and excuse me, I'm just changing the battery in my mouse.
Nipan, I mean, you were talking about, other than Alonso, did you really need to strengthen in this window, do you think?
Probably not. Maybe in the summer we cut our losses on Romelu Kardashian and signed another.
I mean, that's a strange move. I'd like to know the story behind Romelu coming back. That seems like it was more of a Abramovich signing than Tuchel to me.
Well, he's apologised for something, hasn't he?
Look, he didn't apologize. Put it this way, he didn't apologise because he had to. He apologised because he got caught.
Well, that's
life, isn't it?
Yeah. So somebody who lives at a number 10 abode.
He has to get double
doing the same.
He has to. Okay, if he wants my apology, he needs to get at least 5 assists and 15 goals this season.
He's probably glad that Tuchel's his manager and not yourself. Nippon, thanks for popping on. You've changed your channel name. What's your new channel name? Where can people find your channel? Say that again. You broke up. Sorry, Nippon.
NS Sports TV.
NS Sports TV. A lot of Chelsea content, but also a lot of general football content. Pop over there and get Nippon out.
I'm trying to add Formula One as well, because it's called NS Sports for a reason. Otherwise, it's NS Football TV.
Good point. So, again, Formula One as well. Get over there. Nippon, thanks very much, mate. And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Cheers.
Nippon.
Bye.
I think we really should start brushing our hair live on TV.
At least he wasn't eating.
That's true.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that someone was out of shop peeling some grapes for him.
I think he might have been. Which was maybe why it was just a little short pop on. Thank God you were asking him questions. Right, a couple of comments here. But yeah, the film was called No Hunger in Paradise. So check it out, guys. That might be a bit of an eye opener. It's in Europe. Andrew says it will be game time for the youngsters. And David says, did you see a reason why we didn't maybe go for Nat Phillips on loan, who eventually went to Bournemouth? I forget, but not sure if he didn't have the aggression we needed. Nat Phillips, I mean, Bournemouth, to be honest with you, for being in the Championship, they've splashed, well, not splashed the cash, but they've got a few signings. Todd Cantwell's gone there, who we were linked with. I think the problem with Nat Phillips is if it's a Premier League club, you have to pay these days a loan fee. So your loan fee can be £5 million for half a season. So we're not just talking about just pop in and we'll pay half your wages here.
I think the other factor is that if Premier League teams are loaning to other Premier League teams, one, they don't want them to be going to teams who could be then challenging them. And I don't think for any way that we're going to be challenging Liverpool this season. But they want them to play as well.
Enjoy, Nip, and enjoy.
Yeah. But I think they want them to play. And I'm not sure once everyone is back. So Fofana's obviously got to get some game time, but you've got Soyuncu. Hopefully he'll refine some form. You've got James Justin coming back. Amartey's coming back. Is Nat Phillips going to be a starter? He may have been, may not have been, but I'm not sure he got the necessary pace that he was looking for. No. I'm sure there was a conversation had, but it all comes down to was it value for what we were being asked to pay, and was he going to get enough pitch time?
Financially viable, like you say, and like you've got to be careful because we know there's a problem at centre back. We've got Mendy's come back now. He's missed the January window, so he's not going to be sold. And it's who knows, if he's now added to the team, that might let Ndidi free to come back into defence. Not ideal, but an option. but we don't want to end up with a team full of centre-backs, which is what we could do.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because I think you need to resubmit your squad again. And it's difficult if you fill it with loan players, knowing that you've got certain players who are going to come back in. So those players have got to be named in the squad. It becomes difficult. I think there was another interesting name that was thrown out, who was Joe Rodon at Spurs, who came very highly rated last year from Swansea as a centre-back and has hardly had any time at all. Doesn't appear like he's in anybody's plans, but he could have been an option as well. Yeah.
Andrew says he would have loved Lingard, but it would have cost us money. And see, I think in the last summer, I think we'd spent what we were intending to spend. You know, we'd brought the players in. You know, one of those was on a free, and then of course Fofana got injured, so they had to go and. I believe, and I could be wrong here, just when we're in it, they had to go and find 15 million for Vestergaard. Had they got 30 million spare, who knows, we might have got Tarkovsky. But we bought what we could do, I think, for the budget we had. And that just left us as Pennison. Do we risk everything by taking loans out and buying players? And then you say you've got them just sat on the bench. And we lose players at the moment that, you know, how much did we lose on Slimani? You know,
I mean, it's an interesting one there with Lingard. I think most people would have liked Lingard, but the question I always ask when you look at a player like Lingard is, who are you dropping for him to play?
Yes.
Because if he's coming on loan, he's going to want to play. His club are going to want to play, and you're paying a loan fee, which means you're going to make him play. So. Maddison's going on the bench, or is it Lookman who's started playing really well? Is it Daka? Who is it? So yes, it's good bringing them in, but who would you necessarily drop to put them in the team?
And let's be honest, like you say, this I think not write the season off so much, but as good as, if you like, because we know, like I say, we're not up the top there, you know, but we're not down the bottom either. So let's just take it as a season of settling down, of reevaluating, which I think a lot of teams looking at the window have got the same idea. Nip, and I haven't missed your question. I'm coming back to it in a minute. I mean,
you look at. So I mean, you look at a couple of clubs who are in a better position than us. Let's say. So we know Villa have splashed a bit of cash. We know that Everton have, but the two teams who are having good seasons. Who could potentially be, if not Champions League in terms of West Ham, definitely a sort of 6th or 7th. So for European, so West Ham and Wolves, I would say, haven't particularly strengthened at all. And in fact, Wolves have allowed Traore to go. So I don't think, as I say, unless you're desperate, and it's more desperation about getting pulled into a relegation scrap. I don't think many teams are gambling to get higher up the league into European spots.
No. I think, like I say, almost you could almost say sensibility has taken over, and I use that word lightly, if it is such a word, when we're talking about football clubs. But David says here, all the same, if you think we rush to spend 15 million on Vestergaard, dollars, no, it was pounds, I believe, and that's why we didn't spend this window. Did that mean we only had 15 million or something? I don't think we have the 15 million, to be honest with you. I think we've stretched as far as we can. And I would sooner say, hang on, let's settle where we are now, rather than do a Leeds, which was like spend, have a couple of good seasons, and then end up down sort of, you know, back in the third tier, so to speak. But again, in summer, Craig, you know, we've got to look that we're probably going to have to replace Tielemans.
Yeah.
Now, Tielemans, if he wants to go, I mean, we paid 40 for him, so they're talking that he could go for 40, which I don't think he will. And we're all sat here saying 80, 90 million. I don't think clubs out there maybe have got that money like they did, you know. Not every club's a Man United that will pay 80 million for a player. And you've got to sort of think, well, okay, somebody's offered us 60 million. We think he's worth more, but if we don't take that in a year's time, in 6 months' time after the summer, he can talk to clubs, and in 12 months' time, he could leave for nothing.
Yeah, I think, the teams who are going to come after him are not, I don't think they're going to spend over the odds. I think the reason Man United spent over the odds were they were pretty desperate for a centre half. And I don't think anybody in terms of the top teams are overly desperate for a centre midfield player. So therefore they won't play. They'll pay for goal scorers. These days they'll pay for a keeper and they'll pay for centre halves because that's the bread and butter, isn't it? Keep them out at one end, score them at the other. Midfield players, unless you've got a sensational player who's out of this world, and I think Tielemans is a really, really top-notch player. Is he going to get into?
Really, isn't he?
He is a bit of a quarterback. It's interesting. Tom Brady's just retired. Maybe he'll switch codes and go over to Patriots. But he's not going to walk into Man City's team. Chelsea have got a lot of central midfield players. I think the natural slot would be Liverpool potentially for him. They're going to
abroad.
Sorry,
or abroad.
Yeah, or abroad. I think over here it's probably only Liverpool who would pay, and I think you'll be very lucky to get anything more than 60 million, to be honest, in the summer.
Yeah. The question that Nippon was asking about, do we see very quickly, because obviously we're talking transfers today, Kieran Tierney as a future England international? And there's no reason why he can't be.
There's not. I think he's got a big second half of the season, and I think that will determine a lot of how Brendan looks in the summer to replacing Tielemans as well, because they're not all going to fit, all these players, and the only way that Kieran Dewsbury-Hall gets anywhere near an English squad is more minutes on the pitch. So I think it's a big second half of the season for him. It's a crowded area, isn't it, that in terms of England internationals coming through. So potentially, he's done well in the 6 months he's had at this level. He's got to kick on for the second half now.
He has, like you say, it's whether, depending on injuries and suspensions, as to whether he gets to play or not, and of course how far we go in the cup competitions.
Yeah.
So looking at, that's Leicester basically. Like we said, we didn't expect to do much, and we weren't disappointed, really, were we? And I think we've got to say, our owners don't get to run a business as well run as King Power is by taking unnecessary risks, and I think we've agreed it probably would have been an unnecessary risk to spend a lot of money. Very quickly running through the teams here. Arsenal, I've never even heard of this, Colorado Rapids they've brought in. But, out is Pierre Patrick Aubameyang. I'm not even going to attempt most of these. Maitland-Niles I was surprised about. Wasn't so long when we were after him. Kalajnic and Chambers have gone, and I think the rest of them...
Chambers could have been an interesting one for us as well, because he can play right back and centre half.
But again, would Arsenal have let him come to us? Because
they've let him go to Villa, so but it is a purchase, not a loan, so that may be the deciding factor there.
Well, exactly, and it's that, as somebody said earlier, Villa are spending the Grealish money, which I can't even see who it was now. Somebody said that anyway, and it's very true. They've got the money to spend, so why not? Then we're looking at now Aston Villa. Mentioning them, Coutinho, what a signing he could be. I think I can never pronounce this. Lucas at Everton for 25 million and Callum Chambers from Arsenal. I think they've spent the money very, very well.
They have. Proven players, really. Callum Chambers probably not going to be a starter, but you never know. They've got a couple of good young centre backs who are playing well for Villa. Konza has been really good this season. but Chambers offers them cover, I think, at fullback positions and centre half. So that's a decent signing as long as they haven't spent too much money on him. And Dinu, you know, his quality, particularly with the dead ball. And yeah, Coutinho is that little bit of an unpredictable player, isn't he? So decent.
He can always saw at Man United. He can change a match.
Yeah.
When he comes on. Out, not many.
Well, there'll be one there that we'll be seeing at the weekend.
I'm going to say, yes, yeah. Keenan Davis would be interesting.
He looks a handful, I got to say.
Yeah. This was a weird one for Everton. El Ghazami, I know it was part of the deal that brought Digney in, but I'm surprised. Matt Taggart, or Target, I should say. Taggart was the Scottish detective, wasn't he?
He was.
Again, like us, a lot of the younger players going out.
Yeah, I think now this is what it's like, isn't it? In the summer one, you try and get those players who you think have got potential, go and get them some game time lower down, and see you get a much better idea of whether they're likely to make this step up.
Yes. Scott, that's a very interesting question. We might come to it at the end if we've got time. I'm trying to sort of concentrate on the transfers at the moment. Brentford, I mean, to me, and it is absolutely lovely to see him back. But to me, this was window. You've got to say, who would we have let drop to get him in our team? I would have loved to have seen him here. But Christian Eriksen, I am worried that, you know, he's not allowed to play in one country, but he is allowed to play in here. I'm sure Brentford will look after him, but that was a bit of a coup for them, wasn't it?
It is. I think, you know, if I had a cynical hat, I'd be saying it's a shirt sales signing, to be honest. Probably the most high-profile player they've ever had playing for them. No disrespect. They've got a lot of Danish players at the club, so he will fit in well there. But,
yeah,
you know, let's hope that he gets back somewhere near to the playing level. And I'm sure that wherever he goes, whatever ground he turns up at, as an away player, he'll get a rousing reception from the home fans.
I'm sure he will. And the fact that the manager's obviously from there as well is a big help. But again, a lot of those outgoing junior players, you know. Having said that, I mean, you know, it wasn't so long ago we maybe sold a few shirts with Cambiasso on the back.
We did indeed. I don't think he was necessarily had the same level of pull that Eriksen does, but we had him for a good season. I mean, if Eriksen has the same impact that he did, then well done, Brentford.
Yeah. Good. I mean, I want Brentford to stay up. I've always said that out of the three that came up, I like to see these sorts of teams.
Yeah.
And, you know, do well and hopefully stay up, at least have a couple of seasons, which I think they're not going to go down, I don't think. So, you know, it could be the signing of the summer, as they say. Brighton, never heard of these players, but Kasper Kozlowski and Denez Undav at Brighton. And again, outgoings, apart from Dan Burn for 30 million, nobody I've heard of.
No one there. I mean, that's a good signing for Newcastle, that, I think, Dan Burn.
Yes, they will come on. I mean, obviously, we'll come down to Newcastle. They have splashed the cash, so to speak. But then again, you know, add a £2 million on for a play. Yeah, okay, we're Newcastle. Add another $1 million on. We're feeling generous, you know. Burnley, I know Dan. I was supposed to be on his show tonight. I went on his yesterday. He did it was the slowest transfer deadline show I've ever been on. I've got to be honest with you, from 1911, simply because we were getting excited that somebody was going to Motherwell or something like that. It was not the best season to do one of those, but he was not happy with Burnley's business at all.
No.
Yes, he's happy with the fact that they've got rid of Chris Wood for 25 and they've brought his replacement, Wout Weghorst, now there's a name, for half that. But, and again, a couple of minor ones out, but they needed to do more, I think, didn't they? They were a team that needed to sort of get some.
I don't know. You say that, but I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what were their realistic expectations of who they could have got in to strengthen that team. I would say their strength over the seasons for Sean Dyche has been having a tight squad to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, people who know the jobs and they work in that system. I think as soon as you start throwing a lot of new players in, you could rock it a bit. I mean, their position they're in at the minute isn't great, but they have got, I think, 4 games in hand. I'd be very surprised if they were still struggling towards the end of the season. I think that's a decent one. And Chris Wood, 25 mil for Chris Wood is great money. And you brought in a Dutch international for less than half. I wouldn't be panicking too much if I was a Burnley fan, but then, you know, I'm quite pleased that I'm not.
Yeah. Well, Dan knows, and I do have a soft spot, having lived there for 20 odd years for Burnley. But I think this is the season when we say goodbye to them. I think his annoyance is that they've got these new owners in who have promised to spend money, but they haven't. I mean, you know, they spend half of what's come in. You know, you've got another 12 million. They are in trouble down the bottom there, even if it's just loan signings. And you don't know who's available and who other teams are prepared to let go. But, you know, certainly on last night's show, they were looking at the loan signings that were going out, and especially to places like Bournemouth.
Yeah, but I mean, again, so Norwich, Todd Cantwell, let's take that for an example. Are Norwich going to help strengthen a team who they're going to be in a relegation battle with?
That's a good point.
Never going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that comes into play as well.
Yes, yeah. I want to just, while we're on Burnley, a player I would have liked to have got in the summer, but I think we couldn't afford him, which is why we got the 6'6" tree in. But Tarkovsky, now he's going to be available if he doesn't sign a new contract on a free at the end of the season. Do we go for him or don't we?
I've never bought into the hype, to be honest. I don't see it. I think he's a decent footballing centre half, but then so is Vestergaard if you give him time. I don't think he fits the profile of having pace. I think for me, Ben Mee is a more aggressive player, and he's the one who always impresses me more than Tarkovsky. But again, it depends. I'm not sure of his age. What is he, 28, 29, Tarkovsky? If you can get him on a free and you're not paying too much, then it's decent strengthening. But if you take into account, are we going to have everybody fit and available? Johnny's still going to be here, unfortunately. Fofana.
Don't hide your feelings there.
Yeah, Soyuncu, Amati. I mean, how many? It'll get to a point of how many centre halves do we need?
Do you remember Martin Allen? I think we ended up with a team of left wingers with it under him, didn't we?
Yeah, I think he only lasted about half a dozen games, didn't he, Martin?
He did, but he lasted long enough before that to. But all the players we seem to be buying were for that one. I think it was that position. I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody would correct me if I'm wrong. Nippon, yes, I will do. He's asking me about a Premier League prediction show. I will do. And he also says Ben Mee makes Tarkovsky look good. So he's kind of agreeing with you there. Chelsea we did earlier with Nippon. Crystal Palace in Jean-Philippe Mateta. Who
they had on loan anyway.
Yes. Yeah, they've obviously been impressed with him because they've signed him full time. And lovely name, Luke Plange. How is your Plange, Craig?
I mean, to be honest, if that was your name, you'd be putting an accent on that E, wouldn't you, and trying to make it a little bit more exotic. Yeah, Plonge. Luke Plonge.
Luke Plonge. Mrs. Bouquet, if you
exactly.
Yes. But no, I mean, what you're saying about Mateta that they had in anyway. I mean, should we have done the same with Lookman, or have we got him on a loan to buy and therefore?
I don't know. I mean, you look at these again. Nobody's. Crystal Palace are going to be like us. We're going to be sort of mid-table. We're not really in danger of getting sucked into a relegation battle. Not realistically going to be looking at Europe. So why spend your money now when you can take your time in the summer and have a bit more of a strategic, longer-term plan? Yeah.
And, with Lookman, yes, we know how he's played, but there's still half the season to go.
Yeah.
produce it over the full season if you want us to do it. Terry's just said Plonget is going to be loaned back to Derby if the EFL agree. Right, one of those is it. A couple of those go through. And again, look at that with Crystal Palace. There's nobody of name there. Everton. Now this is interesting. First of all, let's start with the manager. They brought a new manager in. Right decision?
Well, I think so. I mean, part of me is like, you've chosen a manager based on somebody putting some graffiti on a wall. That's what it looks like to the outside world. They were quite keen on this Pereira guy. As soon as somebody writes the graffiti saying they don't want him and they want Lampard in, I don't remember there being a big clamour for Lampard before it looked like they were going to get Pereira. It's I don't know. It's like me saying, I didn't want Vestergaard, but if I've got to choose between Vestergaard and Evans, I'm not saying I would. I'm just using it as an example. But it's like his stock went up overnight as soon as it looked like it could be somebody that nobody had heard of. But you would think it's a decent managerial appointment. Didn't really have that long to prove himself, so he's probably got a bigger club than he deserves on his managerial record at the moment. But it could work, and if he can get a tune out of those players that he's brought in, then you can only see them rising up the table.
I mean, to you, me, and fans of 14 clubs in the Premier League, I don't think Lampard had a bad season. Taking Chelsea, who at that particular point couldn't sign anybody because they were on a transfer ban, into 4th place, bringing the youth through, something Chelsea maybe hadn't done that much in the past. Actually keeping the youth players and using them. My God, there's a surprise, Chelsea. It works. I mean, he got them to 4th, so he didn't particularly do bad for most clubs.
No, he did in that first season. He didn't. But then he totally. I don't know what the right words are. It's all right saying, I can't buy anybody there. I'm going to give youth a chance. And I would have done this anyway. Blah blah blah. I'm a big believer in youth. As soon as the shackles were off, he spent loads of money, and a lot of the youth was thrown back on the bench. So I don't know. I think it's one of those. Will the real Frank Lampard please stand up?
Yes. Yeah. Looking at his though that he's paid, I mean, 2 that stick out there. I think Donny van der Beek, the loan from Manchester United, is a capture. I think he's done really well to get him. And I'm just surprised at Man United, letting him go when you've got players like Pogba in the team that couldn't give 2 arses about it.
Yeah.
And Dele Alli, I mean, if they, like you just said before then with Frank Lampard, will the real Dele Alli please stand up? Yeah. If they get the Tottenham Dele Alli, or are they going to get the MK Dons Dele Alli?
Let's start with Van der Beek. I think really what they've got here, they've got Everton. Man U have got Everton to do the Donachie work for them. They can't put him in the team full time because of the players they've already got. So basically, they're saying, right, go and prove to us whether he's a Premier League player. Because we can't. So I think it's a really good move for Man United. As much as it's a good move for Everton, I think it's a very good move for Man United because, if he can't cut it there, they'll know without risking him in their own team.
Yes. But that to be honest with you, that's using the loan system for what it's there for in a way, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it should be benefiting both clubs. Dele Alli, I mean, it's purported to be a free, isn't it? And that 40 million is dependent on appearances and performance or whatever. So again, if you get a 40 million pound player, then you don't mind paying it if it's Dele Alli, because a couple of years ago you'd have been paying twice that. So and if he doesn't turn out, no loss for Everton. So I mean, on paper, it's a fantastic move for Everton now.
Yeah. Dorco says Craig could manage Everton better than Chris. I dare say he could. I'm not putting myself forward for the job. Did you mean that, Dorco, or did you mean better than Frank? I don't know. And they're out, like you say. Lewis Digney goes out. Leeds United. Nothing really much happening there, is there?
No, interesting there. I think Leeds are probably more pleased that they've not lost anyone.
Yes,
because rumours of people circling over the heads of Rafinha and Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think they've potentially got a lot of cash, and again, they're going to have players coming back, so they don't want to fill in and be spending a lot of money. Tricky one for Leeds because they are in a spot, but it's that injuries. I would suggest that their top players are very close to getting back on the pitch, but could be an interesting watch, Leeds, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, like I think they're happy that on who they have actually not sold more than who they have bought in. Liverpool, Diaz came in for 49 million. Nat Phillips, I suppose, is a big one. The name we know that's gone out. I think for them, it was the one that didn't go through, didn't have the time to go through.
Yeah, and by all accounts, he is a player at Carvalho at Fulham. I mean, I would imagine that that's a done deal in everything but paperwork. And they've let Nico Williams go the other way, which looks to be like it may have been part of the deal.
Yeah,
I think Carvalho may have been loaned back anyway.
Yes,
I think he's out of contract. So, and if they buy him in the summer, I think it goes to a tribunal.
Right.
So. But then it's free for all. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's a deal already done and in place and they'll get some money.
Yeah.
If he goes abroad, I think Fulham get nothing. So I think it's in their interest to try and get a deal done with Liverpool, even though the player isn't going there at the moment until the summer. But he does look a really good player.
And in fairness, Liverpool weren't even allowed 14 seconds, were they?
No, they weren't.
I've got to let it go, haven't I? I've got to let it go. Yeah. Man City, Julian Alvarez in from River Plate for 14 million. Where Barcelona got 55 million pounds from, to all intents and purposes, the coffers were bare.
To be fair, that's probably, I don't know, 55 million. What's that? A couple of months of Messi's wages, potentially.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think there's no point ever trying to work out how Spanish teams are funded, particularly those two giants.
No, not at all. Alvarez, a striker, finally coming in.
Supposedly very good. I would imagine if he's half the player that the Argentinian Aguero was, then they'll be licking their lips at paying just 14 million for him. I think he's got a very good goals to game record at the moment this season. So, it'd be interesting.
He's 96 appearances for River Plate, and he's 22 years old. So, that's on his side. And he's got 36 goals and 25 assists. So, not bad at all. I just, it's weird. And I'm just trying to get my head around this when we say, it's a bargain at 14 million. That's not much at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's scouting though, isn't it? I mean, I don't think he was on the radar of anyone else. This is you've got to say it's good scouting, and that's how it should be. I mean, if there's 1.5 million players in academies around Europe, which I'm led to believe is correct from our sources, Miss Molina, then there's a hell of a lot of decent players out there, and it amazes me that so-called bigger clubs are not out there, and I'm sure they are, but it's rare that they decide to take a punt on anyone who's unproven. And Man City can afford to do it, can't they? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Ferran Torres was going to be a superstar, paid quite a bit of money for him, and then just ship him out pretty quickly because they got the next one coming in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I can remember when Trevor Francis became the most expensive player in the world at 1 million. Yeah,
I know.
And here we are saying, 14 million. That's a bargain. That is. Youngsters, kids. Trevor Francis, ask your parents. Melina, good evening. Hope you and your dad are both well. How are you? How do you feel about Arsenal's window? I don't know whether you're still at work now. 5 off 8, you probably are. So you're probably not able to come on. But if you want to, the link's further up the chat. I I've heard Arsenal fans not too happy with the window, so that will be interesting.
I'm guessing. I'm just guessing. If Man City were on a budget and spent 14 million, I'm guessing they were probably priced out of the Chris Wood move.
And that in fact that deserves definitely. Man United, oh dearie me, nobody in, and we won't talk about the one that obviously is no longer in the squad, but nobody in at all. Diallo, Martial, and Van der Beek out, but again, all three on loan, so probably all three good decisions.
I think so. I think Martial just looks like a Mardy brat. They've still got Pogba there, but there looks to be, and I'm not going to go into what's going on there at the moment, but there does appear to be some kind of issue at Manchester United that over the past few years, the players have been allowed to rule the roost. And I think it'd be interesting to see who they go for as manager in the summer, but I think it needs someone of the Ferguson ilk, someone who's going to rule with a bit of a rod of iron to get them back on track.
Yes. Just because you come into Manchester United doesn't mean you are as big a player as you seem to think you are in your head, sort of thing. Yes, But now the big spenders here, Newcastle. I've got to be honest with you, some good players in there. I mean, I know Target's only a loan. Dan Burn at Brighton could be a good investment. I don't really know Guimaraes from Lyon. I mean, Trippier, we all know him. I think that's a good deal. Chris Wood, 25 million. That is one that I still can't get my head round.
No, I think everyone else. I mean, they needed defenders. That was clearly where they were short. When they get everybody on pitch, they bought Willock from Arsenal last season, who was scoring a lot, hasn't scored this season. St. Maximin is fantastic if he can turn in some end product. Wilson's a great striker if they can ever keep him fit. But the fact that they're not scoring enough means that they needed to tighten up at the back. And I think in general terms, that's a pretty decent window for them there. I do like Matt Target. I spoke about him last season as maybe somebody that we could have picked up fairly cheap as a left back. I'd have taken him over Bertrand any day of the week, to be honest. And now he's gone out on loan. So, Trippier, you're buying experience, and Dan Burn, almost scored against us the other night. Again, I think they've had a very good window, and if they don't get out of trouble, at least the fans can see that they've had a go. There was always going to be a limitation on who you could get to go to Newcastle in the predicament that they're in, but within those restrictions, I think they've done a pretty good job. Aside from, as you say, the Chris Wood one makes very little sense because that's not how Eddie Howe's teams play. They don't play to a big target man. They try and get the ball down and play football. So I'm not sure about that one, but everyone else it looks decent.
Yeah. You've just said his name now, and I've forgotten his name. Eddie Howe did have Chris Wood under him when he was at Burnley for a short term, so maybe he knows he can do other things. I don't know, but I just don't think he's a long term. I think he's a stopgap filler, and you could argue have they weakened a relegation rival? I don't think they have, to be honest with you, because I think they did it that early that Burnley were able to get somebody in.
Yeah.
Time will.
I mean, was Eddie Howe there at the same time as Chris Wood? Because obviously, when Chris Wood left us, he was at Leeds for a while.
Yes.
And Sean Dyche has been there a while. So
I could stand corrected. Dan isn't here when you need him. I'm sure he could have told us. Scott says, "Are you right in thinking Kasper Schmeichel has stated he wants to play Champions League football? Can you see him leaving? And if so, do we go for Dean Henderson from Man United?" Scott, I think he has said somewhere for me that he wants to play Champions League football, but then what player doesn't? It might have been said as part of, I've done it once, I'd love to do it again.
Yeah.
You look at any of the clubs that are that are fighting for Champions League in the UK, and you've got to say, he's getting on a bit now, Casper, isn't he?
Yeah.
Who would realistically, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea,
if he wants to play Champions League football again, he'll end up at Copenhagen.
Yeah,
I think that's the reality of it.
Yes, definitely.
But as you say, we live in a time where it's about a headline, and you very often get the answer, but you don't see the question that was asked.
Exactly.
If he's in an interview being asked, "Are you still ambitious?" Yes, I'd like to play Champions League football. Okay, that's fine. You're answering that question, but in isolation, the answer can be taken to mean many, many different things and interpreted in many different ways.
Like we said at the start, the Leicestershire Live / Leicester Mercury headline into a story syndrome. And no, I don't think we should go for Dean Henderson, because I think we've got a very good number 2 who would come through, and I would want to see Danny Ward come through and given that chance.
I think we've got 2 or 3. You've got Danny Ward, and then obviously Jakupovic. God knows what he's still doing at the club. I don't know. I assume that he maybe they let him take the gloves home during the week. I don't know, but he's there. He's a decent keeper. I'd have thought he must be picking up a decent wage. Yes. But then behind him, you've got his name slips my mind, but the guy who's gone off on loan,
Stolarech or something.
Well, he's just gone on loan, but obviously you've got the guy up at Preston, Everson.
Oh yes.
Who again, every time he goes out on loan, and we gave him a new deal. So I think there's a pipeline behind Casper, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. But I say for me, there's no chance. It's just straight over to Danny Ward. Thank you very much. I'm surprised, bless him, he's not been knocking on the door. Norwich, nobody have any significance out and absolutely nobody in. I think that probably says a lot about Norwich this season. Southampton, again, minor players out on loan and nobody in. Tottenham, now then, this is interesting. A couple of Juventus players in, Bentancur and Kulasevich, and main ones out, Mboli, Gil, Lo Celso, and Ali. That looks to me like Conte putting his mark on the club.
Definitely. He clearly knows those 2 players from Juventus. The first one, I think, is supposed to be quite a decent player. I don't know much about the second one. And Ndombele, there's clearly a player there, but it doesn't necessarily look like he's suited to the Premier League. Hill looked very, very interesting when he came across. I think he came from Barca. I know someone will probably correct me. But that's definitely with a view to him getting game time and coming back, I would have thought. Lo Celso, I think, is a dirty little cheat, so I'm quite happy to see him go. And Dele Alli, we know all about. A good move for him to Everton.
Watford and their new manager, my God, are they going to wheel him on in a bloody bath chair soon? I mean, let's talk Roy Hodgson first of all. I mean, you're replacing Claudio with, and I love Claudio obviously for what he did, but we know that he only did that because of what had happened before. But you can say that about a lot of managers when they move in and take over clubs. Hodgson, I just don't get it.
For me, it makes sense. What their biggest problem is, they've got goals in them. What they've got is a leaky defence. Yeah. And Roy Hodgson builds his teams from the back to not let in goals. I think if your only chance this season of staying up is to stop leaking goals, and this isn't a long-term appointment. I mean, let's not kid ourselves about it. No. It's a short-term appointment to try and keep them in the Premier League with someone who knows how to build from the back, build a tight defence, and has experience of the league. I don't know who else you would have got in who wouldn't have been a gamble, to be honest. And
Big
Watford,
Sam?
we know, have gambled. You could say this is a gamble, but you're gambling with experience. Rather than gambling with another name who's probably had the job 3 times already, or someone you've never heard of.
Yeah. I Mean, Big Sam, would you have gone for Big Sam?
No. To Just no.
We'll take that. We'll take that as a no, then, Craig.
Yeah, no, I can't. You know, he'd be pushing me. I don't know. I'm losing the right words to use for him. So let's move on.
Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Hassani Kamara, Samir Kambaikalu. Nobody that they brought 4 in, but nobody that sticks out really. Is there?
No.
West Ham. I was watching a West Ham video the other night. YouTube video on by one of the fan sites, and there's a little bit of steam coming out their ears.
As I say, I was listening to TalkSport on the way back, and there are 2 West Ham fans on very different views. Even though the first guy was saying that it seemed disappointed, but a sensible window in the fact that he didn't seem the point in. And this is the bit that annoys me sometimes, because people say we should have got players in, but never give out the names. And then there's so many factors in whether that player wants to come to you, what the fee that's being asked, is he a short-term gap? Is he going to get in the team? There's so many variables that in January it's very difficult, and you can end up spending a lot of money on wasted players. So I think West Ham could have probably gambled. I think there's a couple of players who would have done them good. I mean, the guy, Breton Diaz at Blackburn, for instance, if they're looking for a striker, because we know Antonio is every chance that Antonio is going to get injured in the running. This is probably their best chance of ever getting in the Champions League, for at least for a long, long time. Whether Blackburn, who are looking at promotion, would have let Breton Diaz go, I think it would have cost a lot of money. So it is a big thing as, do we gamble? Do we spend all our summer transfer money now? Or do we take that longer term view? And I think that's what West Ham have done. If we can't get the players we want, very much like us, we'll sit it out and we'll wait.
Yeah. I mean, the West Ham fans were talking about Antonio right at the start of the season getting injured.
Yeah.
I think what they were sort of annoyed about was the Jesse Lingard situation, because, by all attempts, by all things, he's available. He's on a free at the end of the season, and
for me, again, though, without touching on the specifics, you've got to look at what is happening at Manchester United now in that particular position. That makes me think that Lingard has got more chance of playing for the rest of the season than he may have done a week ago, if that makes sense.
Totally see that. Plus, as well, like when they loaned him last time, they weren't particularly top 4 rivals either.
Exactly. You don't want to strengthen that, do you? So
exactly. Wolves, Hayo Kawabe from Zurich. I don't know. I think the big surprise there, or was it a surprise? Traore going on to Barcelona.
I think it seemed pretty clear that the manager didn't like him. There's just some. I think when you've got that much talent, you've got to have an end product. Yeah. And he did last season, but then he had I can't remember his name, the striker who had the head injury. They were forming a
Jimenez, was it?
Yeah, Jimenez. Yeah,
Jimenez. Let me see.
Yeah, they had a decent partnership last year. Jimenez is obviously not the player he was. It's going to take time for him to get back. I would imagine that he's not throwing himself into headers that he did prior to that injury. So Traore is an enigma, isn't he? And he's probably better suited to Spanish football, I think. So again, there was talk of him going to some other clubs, but not necessarily. I mean, Spurs were in for him. It would have been interesting to see where he would have fitted in at Spurs.
Yeah,
to be honest, but it's a decent move for him anyway. Going and now he can hook up with Aubameyang again. An interesting move that is.
I'm just looking then on Leicestershire Live.
Are you looking for that story I was talking to you about?
Shush. But I came across this while I was looking for that. Right. It says Leicester City are yet to contact RB Leipzig. The problem I've got now with this, because it is such clickbait stuff, is I don't know what to believe when it's on. Leicester Mercury seem to take a story that's on News Now from something that I could have written on my website and make it into a big story. So, who knows? But I think that if he has a second half to the season the same as his first half, I think we will be looking at buying him, surely.
Yeah. I think so, but again, it comes down to how much.
Of course, yes.
Leipzig are going to say, "Well, hang on a minute. He's had a fantastic season with you. You're going to pay through the nose for him because he's not been there that long. So they would have paid a bit of a fee for him. I would have thought.
Would you think that would have been agreed? If I don't know if we've got him on a loan to buy basis.
My understanding, from what I can remember, is that there was nothing in place. And definitely not an obligation to buy. There may have been an option, but I don't think there was, because usually if there's an option, there's a figure banded around so you can make a judgment on it.
I'm just looking here. Liam Moore has been moved on from Reading. There's a name.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a swap. I can't remember where he's gone. I think there was a bit of a swap deal going on. Liam Moore going, so I can't remember where he's gone.
Down to the 10th paragraph, and they haven't yet told me where he's gone. But I have gone past 2 adverts that I could click on for continent knickers and stair lifts. But so somewhere he has moved on. Leicester Mercury, sort yourselves out. That's all I will say. I think overall, I think a few seasons ago we would have been a bit annoyed, but I think overall we've got to say it was prudency from the club. And
I think the thing is, when everybody's fit, and at Leicester over the past 18 months, that's been the big question. Is when everybody's fit, it's a decent squad. You've only got to look up front when you think now you've got Daka, Iheanacho, and Vardy, 3 very good strikers. At the back, when everybody's fit, we're solid. Midfield, we've got numerous options now. Indeed, he's come back. You've got Tielemans, you've got Maddison, you've got Lookman, you've got Barnes. When everybody's fit, it's a decent squad. So it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, a little bit of disappointment that there wasn't some kind of signing that came out of the blue that would have bolstered us at the back a little bit. But in general terms, I think it's a season of just consolidation, isn't it? And just get through it as best we can, to be honest.
Yes. And like you say, we've got possibly Mendy coming back, who could be included.
Played well for Senegal by all accounts.
Yes, yeah. Well, the one game off the final, I think, aren't they? So well done. Well done. I always liked him as a player.
Yeah.
I felt a bit sorry for him. At one point, he was our most expensive signing.
To be honest, for me, he would have offered more than Samari so far.
Yeah, exactly. Terry just says there, any room now for Mendy? I mean, if Tielemans is moving on, which we think he is, and I'm not saying that Mendy is a replacement for him, but he's done a decent job.
Yeah,
certainly last season, at the start of the season when we had a lot of injuries, he was called upon quite a bit, and I don't think he ever particularly let us down.
No, he's a tidy player, and as I say, he was brought on a lot of times for 15, 20 minutes. And as I say, we're doing the same now with Samari, but Mendy was very good at keeping the ball. He did a really good job, solid job in seeing games out. And I think, we've not had that this season, as has been shown, sadly, over the past few games.
Yes, indeed. That, I think, is it. I think we've spoken. I mean, the Ramsey to Glasgow Rangers, again, that was another one that annoyed Dan from Burnley, because apparently he turned down Burnley and went to Glasgow Rangers, which he was a bit upset about. But, he's got no affiliation to Burnley or any other English team necessarily. Wouldn't you? I'd go to Rangers thinking, I might win some trophies here.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing in front of 50,000. They're probably, I don't know, Burnley probably could have paid him a bit more than Rangers, but Rangers, I think, are still in Europe. I don't know if there's a link there, whether Van Bronckhorst was in the Arsenal academy coaching at any level when Ramsey was at Arsenal as well. So there may have been a link there. They're both obviously played for Arsenal in the past, but it's not really a big surprise to anybody outside Burnley, is it?
No, not at all. Next game, East Midlands Derby. We've missed them, haven't we?
We have indeed. You know, we've been having to look across to the West Midlands for any derby. So not going to be an easy one, that. And I know we're going to look at it on Friday, but I'm expecting a tough game.
And we will be joined by Des, a Nottingham Forest fan. So
not Des Walker, is it?
No, I haven't quite got that sort of pull yet, you know. I'd say it was Des O'Connor, but he's no longer with us. So
No.
I wouldn't say that. But no, I will see you at 7 o'clock on Friday for the Forest preview. Craig, as always, sir, thank you so much for popping on. I know it was a bit of a late one, because I say I was supposed to be elsewhere this evening and that fell through. But thank you very much for coming on. Stay safe and see you on Friday.
You're welcome. Cheers, Chris. Bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Craig. My wise old owl there. What more can I say other than wise, very old owl, I suppose, would be the nearest. But yes, this is coming up at the weekend. Are you ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event of the evening. 60 minutes of football fun and banter with Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV. Are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble.
He's got Wood next to him. Anthony Knocker finds Wood. What's your score? What's Knocker? Anthony Knocker has done it. Nottingham has been painted blue. Anthony Knocker has scored the goal. It's the goal. Allez le bleu. Allez le bleu. Forest 2, Leicester 3.
Allez le bleu. Does that not take you back? Oh, I remember that game. Anthony Knockart managed to score. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to do the same in the when we got into the playoff semi-finals against Watford. But we won't mention that, will we? No, we won't. Please, if you are looking forward to the match and you're not going to the Forest ground, check us out. We're on BBC. Well, it is on BBC, of course, TV, and it's on different radio stations. But why not have it on the TV and join myself and ex-City player Steve Lynex? We'll be doing a watch along. So we're not going to be actually doing the commentary, but we're going to be talking about the game and things that happen, and of course discussing it with the next player. What could be better? I don't think it gets any better. 3:30 on Saturday, that is. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. That was the January transfer window, and that was Craig. Thanks so much to Craig for joining us. I will see you tomorrow at 7. We've got the prediction show, FA Cup prediction show. You know what people are going to say about Leicester, Nottingham Forest? Could be interesting. I'll see you tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. And as if you're listening on Catch Up, on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google, etc. Thanks for listening in. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye and see you next time.
That's all, folks.
Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now.